Once upon a time, there was a brave leader named Joshua. He was chosen by God to lead the Israelites to a new land. God promised this land to them. It was called the Promised Land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Joshua was a strong and courageous leader. He loved God and always listened to his words. The Israelites trusted Joshua to guide them. They knew he would lead them with wisdom and faith. Joshua knew it wouldn't be easy to reach the Promised Land. There would be challenges along the way, but Joshua trusted in God's plan. He knew that with God on their side, they could overcome any obstacle. The first big challenge was the city of Jericho. It stood between the Israelites and the Promised Land. Jericho was a powerful city. It had tall, strong walls all around it. The walls were so high they seemed to touch the sky. The people of Jericho were afraid of the Israelites. They had heard about the miracles God had done for them. They closed the city gates tight. No one could get in or out. When Joshua and the Israelites saw the walls of Jericho, they were worried. How could they possibly get inside? The walls seemed too strong to break down. Joshua knew he needed to talk to God. He went up to a mountaintop to pray. God spoke to Joshua and gave him a plan. March around the city once every day for 6 days, God said. Have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant with you, God continued. The Ark of the Covenant was a special chest that held the 10 Commandments. It represented God's presence among his people. Joshua listened carefully to God's instructions. He knew that even though the plan seemed strange, God would give them victory. Joshua gathered the Israelites. He shared God's plan with them. We will trust in God's word and follow his instructions, Joshua declared. The people were scared, but they believed in Joshua and in God. The next morning, the Israelites began to march. The armed men led the way, followed by 7 priests blowing trumpets. Then came the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant. The rest of the Israelites followed behind. They marched around the city of Jericho once. Then they returned to their camp. They did this every day for 6 days. On the 7th day, God said to Joshua, "Today is the day. March around the city 7 times. Then have the priests blow the trumpets, and all the people shout as loud as they can." Joshua relayed God's message to the Israelites. He could see the confusion on their faces. "Why would we shout?" some whispered. "How will that make the walls fall?" others wondered. Joshua understood their doubts, but he reminded them, God's ways are not our ways. We must trust in his plan, even if it seems strange. Section 6, 7 days of faith. So on the 7th day, the Israelites marched around the city of Jericho 7 times. The priests blew their trumpets, the sound echoing off the towering walls. With each lap, the anticipation grew. After the 7th time around the city, Joshua raised his hand, signaling for the people to be silent. The air hung heavy with expectation. Everyone waited for Joshua's command. "Shout!" Joshua boomed, his voice echoing across the plain. Section 7, the walls come tumbling down. The Israelites obeyed. They opened their mouths and let out a mighty roar. The sound was deafening, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. As the Israelites shouted, something incredible happened. The walls of Jericho began to shake and tremble. Cracks appeared, spider webbing across the once impenetrable surface. With a mighty groan, the walls crumbled and collapsed inward, sending up a cloud of dust that blotted out the sun. The earth seemed to shudder under the force of the collapse. It was a miracle. God had kept his promise. He had given them victory. Section 8, Victory and Celebration. The Israelites were amazed. They had witnessed the power of God firsthand. The path to the Promised Land was now open. With shouts of joy and praise, the Israelites surged forward through the gap where the wall once stood. They had faced a mighty obstacle and with God's help had overcome it. Joshua led the Israelites in the celebration of thanksgiving. They sang praises to God and thanked him for his faithfulness and power. They had learned a valuable lesson that day. They had learned the importance of trusting in God's plan, even when it seems impossible. Section 9, Trusting in God's Plan. The story of Jericho teaches us that even when things seem impossible, God is with us. He can do amazing things if we trust in him and follow his plan. Just like Joshua and the Israelites, we might face challenges in our lives. But remember, with God, nothing is impossible. We may not have to march around a city or shout down walls, but we can always turn to God in prayer. When we trust in God and follow His guidance, we can overcome any obstacle. The story of Joshua and the walls of Jericho reminds us that with faith, anything is possible.